Hello. Well, it's summertime. And for some people, that might mean going on vacation. For kids, that means it's time for school to be over with until the fall. But for 7 kids, it meant something else. For them, it was a nightmarish experience into a creepy house in a sewer system to face off against something dark and dangerous. And that's what we're going to be looking at today. So, at the beginning of this month, I said I was going to bring you a special near the end of this month, something that I have really been looking forward to doing. And, well, that begins right now. If you've read the title of this video, this is in regards to It. Both movies, because I do count the miniseries that was on TV as a movie, since it's usually sold as a movie, and the actual book. What I am going to do is I'm going to start with the newest movie, and I'm going to work backwards. So we're going to do the newest movie first, then we're going to do the TV special movie, then I'm going to talk about the book. Then after I talk about the book, I think that'll be a good point where I'm going to tell you how it can work. Because let me start this entire thing by saying both movies did not work. They both are very good. I really enjoy both versions. But me and a lot of other people usually complain about the ending. I complain about the ending of the movies for different reasons than what other people complain about, although it's a similar reason. And I can see why they don't. So, today's video, like I said, is going to mainly be about the newest movie, It and It Chapter 2. So, let's begin. So, the movie starts off in Derry, following this kid, Georgie, who sells a paper boat. I mean, this is the same in every single adaptation of this story. But he's sailing his boat, he comes across it eats him. Spoiler, if you have not watched it, I mean, I don't know why you'd be watching this video, but, I mean, he eats the kid, basically. And now I want to start by saying this part was almost perfect to the book. This really sold the movie because it was just like the book. And it was just like the miniseries. Now, this is very important to remember. The fact that I'm telling you, this is like it was pulled straight from the book. And I really want you to hold on to that. Hold on to it and remember it. If you especially are in Hollywood and you are seeing this review, that is the most important thing you need to remember, is that this is taken directly from the book. And like I said, we're going to put a pin in that. We're going to come back to that later. But anyways, so Chapter 1. Chapter 1 basically follows these several different kids, and they go through school, they go through different parts of their lives. You know, Bill is a stutterer, but in this Chapter 1, he didn't really have too much of a stutter. All the kid actors they got were perfect. They were great, wonderful, no problem. But yeah, there were certain aspects I just couldn't quite wrap my head around. Like, in this adaptation and the adaptation of the miniseries, Ben is made out to be a new kid. He wasn't a new kid in the book. They each come across it in their own way, and it does not go right after them right away, which you don't find out till much later why, but basically, by the end of the movie, he says, because they taste so much better when they're afraid. And I watched a lot of different people review this. And one of the things that really stuck out to me is Nostalgia Critic actually said, well, in this movie, we actually got to see children floating. And that's another thing I want to put a pin in a little bit. I'll explain a little bit of it now, but just remember, this is another thing to remember. So he makes the comment that, we actually get to see the kids float. Well, I will say this, the miniseries I don't even think it showed many of the children. It showed like maybe a couple people. But there's a whole reason, I would have been fine with it if the ending had turned out the way it should have. Going back to what I was saying, Skarsgård as Pennywise was really good. I really liked his... At first, I was a little offset by his costume design, but when you had Tim Curry doing it, and that's the only reference you had, it took a little getting used to, this Pennywise. But I grew to like him. I grew to enjoy, the character. And Bill Skarsgård was really funny, as Pennywise in his own way. It was a lot better when they took the gloves off and they could go a lot darker. And they could actually do a lot more than the miniseries or the book. Well, basically do what the book did, but the miniseries had its hands tied behind its back and couldn't do. So I really enjoyed Chapter 1. If I had to give it, well, I'm going to give all of them star ratings, I'd give it a 5. It was that good. It was like a perfect score. Although I did have a little bit of a reservation with it being set in the 80s, not the 50s, but I get it. They wanted to do something different. However, sadly, then we get to Chapter 2. Now, some of the big positives. The casting from the kids to the adults was really great. They did a really good job. They also added in even more scenes of the kids, flashbacks, that were basically kind of ripped straight out of the book. Again. But there was a lot that was thrown in that was kind of shaky. Like, they did the hut. And what would have been better is if... Well, I'll save that for the end. Just remember that. The hut. And I'll try to come back and I'll try to mention all of these points. So, basically, the adults come back 27 years later to fight it one more time and kill it because it survived. And I really did enjoy some of it. I did not mind the computer graphics that they used. I really enjoyed the movie. But where it fell for me was some of the things were repeated that we didn't need repeated. And some of the most important plot points were left out. So for my rating on this one, I'll give it 3 stars. Because, like I said, although, we seen all this, Yeah, true, it is repeated stuff from, the book or from the miniseries. And the end. The end was just really bad. But it was bad in a special way. And that's the part that I want to talk about at the end of all these videos. I'm going to give you, when I'm done, after you've watched the last video, I will reveal how they could perfectly do it. But basically, let's just say it does not follow the book, which is really sad, really pathetic. If you're going to take something, you're going to adapt it into a movie, adapt the best parts, not just the parts everybody knows, because everybody knows the Georgie scene. So, like I said, For chapter 1, 5 stars. For chapter 2, I'm going to give it 3 stars. It wasn't horrible on the grand scale. It melded well, I guess, with the previous movie. There was just definitely some room for improvement that really needed it. And this is also something else I've said to many fans is I feel like they should do a third movie. Not necessarily following any of these kids, not continuing on the story, but there are stories in the book that take place outside of time. Meaning, like, there's this whole thing with some gangsters and it. There's this whole thing in a bar and a logging group. And I feel like they could do sort of almost like an anthology movie where you have these little stories, but all the little stories connect because they all take place in Derry and they all center around it. And they could take like these 3 big stories and they could turn it into an anthology film where they get the grown-up actor who's playing Mike, have him going around interviewing, because that's how it was in the book. He went looking for information, and he would hear these stories from these different people. And once he starts hearing the stories, we actually see the stories unfolding. So I think that would be a really good idea on how they could shuffle out one more movie if they want to make a little more money off the book. Just an idea. If you agree, please let me know in the comment section below. If you have not yet, I'm going to ask that you please subscribe to this channel. Make sure to click the notification bell so when the next part of this goes up, which will probably be on Friday, you're notified so you can check out the video for yourself right away. I want to thank you all for watching, and I will talk to you next time.